KFAN.
Want to chime in on what's happening with your favorite KFAN program? Make your voice heard on the Bradshaw and Bryant text line. Let us know what you have to say by texting your message to 64686. That's 64686. Standard message and data rates apply.
Indeed, text line's always up in front of me. We accept all opinions. Opinions of all sorts here 9 to noon. Nordo in for PA. PA returning on Monday. And joining me now, he covers the Minnesota Twins for The Athletic, theathletic.com. You can find him at Dan Hayes, MLB, on the X machine. Joining me now, how you doing, Dan?
I'm good, man. How about you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And I guess I just wanted to kick it off because when you join us and you update us on everything Minnesota Twins related, you spent a lot of time over the last couple of months joining PA, whether it was spring training, into season, now we're in season. You know, if we were going to do like our sales staff, they might put together like an endorsement package. You use various products and services and get you know, maybe doing some ads and stuff. Would you prefer DirecTV or Fubo? Are you more of a Fubo or a DirecTV guy, Dan?
I'm going to go with Johnsonville Brats this week. I am not I'm an MLB TV guy myself, but I can get that because I go back and forth between Chicago and also a dirty little secret is that MLB lets us have blackout free on our MLB TV accounts. So even in Minnesota, I could use it hypothetically. They have that little switch, and it exists. It does exist, but I think there's a lot of cable companies that have a lot of vested rights that prevent that from being switched on for everybody, at least for now.
Interesting.
So,
you think maybe you could contact Rob Manfred, maybe see if they could just kind of flip that switch for like 15 MLB teams who are locked in the belly of the beast here with TV rights?
Hey, Rob wants this more than ever. I mean, he spent all offseason railing on Bally's Diamonds. They're awful, going through their bankruptcy, not paying teams last year, all that stuff. And then, this current round of negotiations with a cable monster like the like Comcast Xfinity. And it really sucks for fans. It's funny. There are 7 teams that cannot do the D2C streaming right now. So the Twins are not alone in that. Their Twins fans are not alone in that. But it's funny that somebody like the Cardinals, they're impacted by this, but it's only the Illinois side it's not actually in Missouri where Comcast is. So all of the Cardinals fans that are in Missouri can watch their below average product right now. It's like their below average product that is being bumped up a little bit by Sonny Gray being good, but aside from that, everything else is pretty bad there. And I think the fans in Illinois are pretty happy about not being able to see the Cardinals, but it's been ugly, man. It's just unfortunate, especially when your team's in a 10-game winning streak. That I don't know the numbers because Comcast and Bally are not getting back to us individually. But I have to assume that Comcast is one of the bigger providers of the Twins, market. And it's unfortunate when, it's already a market that's limited in reach. I think in the whole Twins territory, there's either 4.3 or 4.4 million households. Going into this year, when they were with Bally, the Twins could only reach 1.3 million of those households. So you were already being shut out as it was. And unfortunately, probably a pretty significant chunk of that group is now not able to watch games, which just stinks. But we've seen this before. The Dodgers, 40% of LA, I don't know if it's changed, but 40% of LA couldn't see the Dodgers for 4 or 5 years. And it might still be the same. It's just, it's tragic, and MLB needs to get, sort of a unified product like MLB TV where everyone can do D2C and get past blackouts.
Yeah.
Dan, I too watched MLB games blackout free on MAX TV, but it'd be nice to see them legally and not on one of my bootleg websites. Over in the NBA, the Phoenix Suns last year, they kind of went through a similar deal with Bally's, I believe, and they ended up, their owner, Matt Ishbia, ended up kind of doing a thing that I haven't really seen a lot of teams do. They moved the Suns and Mercury games over to free broadcast television. Do you see anything like that happening with the Twins here, or more so like what you're saying and just move over to MLB TV?
Yeah, I don't know that they're going to do free. I don't know. They're, they have to figure out what they want to do. And it's the option, the real option I think that they had this off season, that honestly, frankly, if you're a business person, would not have been enticing, was go to the just streaming model like the Padres and the Diamondbacks did. In October, Rob Manfred was talking about it and mentioned that the Padres mid-season on hours notice sold about 18,000 subscriptions. That comes out to, I don't know what you want to do the math on it, but it came out to under 2 million for sure. And I think the Twins potentially selling the option, obviously coming off a winning year, ending the playoff losing streak. Maybe they get a couple 100,000 people, and who knows what that ends up looking like, but they would be starting from scratch. And when you look at it and you go, we have to start from scratch. We don't know where we're going to go. We are going to take, a significant loss over last year where they made $54 million. I think that taking the money didn't seem, I don't fault someone for taking the money. The problem is it got them into bed again with Bally, and Bally is pretty terrible as we've seen these last couple of years. And, if you're looking at losing 20 million, 30 million off of a different amount, baseball, I think in the long run, getting straight to these households can get there and figure out ways to monetize it. It's just starting from scratch probably seemed a little daunting. And I think that, we'll see what they do this year when their contract is up again. It'll be very interesting because that's what this is, league wide. We're seeing teams have to face this and figure out how to make money. The RSNs for years have been cash cows, not necessarily for the Twins, who had the worst deal in baseball. They're $54 million. Texas Rangers were making $110 million last year off their RSN. And so that gets you a Corey Seager and a Marcus Semien, essentially, that extra $55 million. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. Dave St. Peter, and talking to him, short term, I think he's nervous. Long term, he was optimistic. Scott Boras, who's very invested in this kind of stuff, was optimistic, thinks that teams going direct to the customers provides avenues. You can offer ticket packages to your direct viewers, stuff like that. There's ways to monetize it, but starting, I can understand why it would be daunting. And so I don't know. It's just such an ugly situation. What the Twins do next will be really interesting to see.
Well, and it seems like it caught a lot of people off guard, and a ton of people are just railing on ownership right now, and
right, of course,
it's not raising the payroll. Like you get the bit. There's 4 or 5 things that pop up with this team, and this is just yet another thing, and people are pissed about it. Didn't feel like there was any advance notice, but my most intriguing thing is at some point, the league, it kind of feels like each ownership group is in some ways out on an island where you can be mad at the Twins, and I think fans can justifiably be so, but it's also, you mentioned it, there are 6 or 7 other teams in Major League Baseball right now that also made the same decision. So not understanding on the inside where they sold optimism that this cutout date was never going to take place. Did they know that it was an eventuality and just held that in their back pocket? That's awful if it happened, and inexcusable if it happened, and then try to pretend that you're shocked and disappointed by it when all the fans are on fire about it. But, moving forward, I guess it's kind of it's been a conversation for 15 years, Dan. I was talking last segment about Mike Trout, who's now injured again, and just a tough stretch the last several years for him, but marketing stars in baseball. And a big part of that is how segmented and compartmentalized their product is from team to team, and not knowing revenue streams or what that potential could be from a digital standpoint. This league has basically kind of sat on this issue, it feels like, for 2 decades. And now we're seeing blackout games and massive segments of fan bases that don't have access. And it's almost like they haven't grown or learned from it. If they get back into bed with Bally's a year from now, that's as preposterous as it gets. So, this direct to consumer thing, it's super confusing to see how a league that in the sports world they rely on this to the tune of the Twins decreasing their payroll by $30 million or whatever it was, in part because of the unknowns of the TV contract. As much as they rely on this cash, to not have any better answers is very concerning.
Well, look, I think it's all reactionary. I mean, this was a cash cow for the league, and now you have individual teams who are finding out what's going. It is very much individualized, and that's why I think Manfred was trying to circle the wagons and get everybody on board. And the problem is that you have a team like the Yankees with the Yankee Network, or Yes, whatever it is.
Yes Network.
The Cubs with Marquee. And I don't know how successful Marquee is. They just started their own network, 5 years ago, I think it was, or 4 years ago. I don't know how successful that is. But yes, the Yankees are printing, they are printing money, essentially. And they have zero interest. The NFL is great in that the NFL has one package. There are no individual sales. The league runs it all. It all goes through the league, and everybody gets to see everything, essentially. I do remember, way back, the league had, when the Raiders, when I grew up in the Bay Area, if the Raiders didn't sell out, Raiders games were not on TV.
Yeah,
there was some kind of rule against that. But, the NFL has it perfect, and I think Rob Manfred sees that, and I think, in talking to Dave St. Peter, he would love it if all 30 got together and did this and made it a one big pot. But how do you tell the Yankees that they should just give up this, their own cash cow? It's hard to do. And I think Manfred is trying to get everybody together on this. And unfortunately, it started at this point because the money started to run out. This is when it became the issue, right? Is that the provider stopped making payments last year. Until that point, it wasn't a problem for the teams because they were still getting ridiculous sums of money. But now that the money is running out, people are, cord cutting, which, as someone that used to work for NBC Sports Chicago, the cord cutting cost a lot of us our jobs in 2017. And that was a huge deal that their reach has dropped significantly. And so I understand why baseball was slow to react. But the thing is now they're here and the water's boiling and they're in it, and it's tough to kind of adjust. And I think they're working around it. And again, I think it's probably why the Twins, you have a full year now to wrap your head around the idea of what happens if we do this on our own, and what happens if we go in-house, and how many fans come along. And the one thing I think that really could be good for fans, if they do direct to consumer and just have a streaming option, and maybe there is a channel on your cable package for, the fans that still have cable. It really makes you want to increase your product and make it a good product. You have to sell your product at this point.
Yep.
And, that you can't limp in. You can't be the Pittsburgh Pirates and have 4 tank years and expect to keep the same amount of subscribers, that kind of thing. And I think that overall, potentially, if we got to that, it could make baseball product better. It could essentially be everybody talks about a salary cap or a salary floor, and how a salary floor would be awesome when you see teams like the A's and Cleveland and Pittsburgh just always underspending compared with everyone else. I think, the market could sort of be that salary floor and encourage teams to go out and increase their payrolls and get better players. And, I'm sure that MLB's players love that idea, but to get there, it's a huge step or multiple steps to get there. And I think we're just sort of at the start of this.
It's Dan Hayes of The Athletic. Follow him at Dan Hayes MLB. Well, the TV thing's not going to be figured out in the next 10 minutes. So let's focus on a team that has won 10 straight games. They finish out things in Chicago yesterday with a 10-5 win, allegedly, unless you have Fubo or DirecTV, or you got that cool switch with the MLB app like Dan does. But worst team, Dan, the 03 Tigers, who went 43-119, or this current incarnation of the Chicago White Sox. I mean, that is an awful team, man.
No, it's about as bad as I've ever seen. And I covered the White Sox from 2012 to 17 when they had multiple, I think they had 3 90-loss seasons in there. It was pretty awful. And this is significantly worse of a team. You know, it's funny you brought up that team because looking back at them, let's see. Oh, I don't see much on that. I mean, the only thing that came good out of that 03 Tigers team is I think it helped them draft Justin Verlander, if I'm correct.
Oh, that's not bad.
Number 1 overall, okay. which is unfortunate for everyone here listening, except for Tigers fans. But you know, that team was miserable all time. I remember, and I don't know. I mean, they're the White Sox 6-25 now.
Something like that.
They're going to make a run for it. They're going to make a real run for it. And it's a bunch of 30-year-olds. That's the weird part. You know, there are about 3 guys on that team that look like they could be tradable parts, and that's probably Eric Fetty, who I think we saw once here in this last week, who really looks good and came back from Korea. And, you know, he's a little inconsistent, but he could be a trade piece. And Tommy Pham had a couple of good days. He could be a trade piece, but he's 36 and he's going to maybe fetch you like a B prospect. And then they have Mike Clevenger, who, you know, the Twins sort of lucked out that Clevenger isn't ready yet during these 2-game series. So they avoided mostly their best players. All 3 of those guys will be gone by August 1. And if the White Sox, the crazy part is because they have a 5th overall pick this year, because of their market share size, no matter where the White Sox finish, they could lose 150 games, and they still couldn't get the number 1 pick. The best that the White Sox can pick, I believe, is 11th overall because of new rules in the CBA that basically hurt you for tanking. So the White Sox hypothetically could have the worst team of all time, and I don't think they can pick higher than 11th. And
wow,
that is so all that misery, and the best thing you get is the 11th pick. It's not good. They're awful, and the Twins did a great job of dispensing of them and of the Angels, who are pretty awful as well. Angels have better starting pitching, but their defense, my goodness, some of those outfield plays.
Yeah, it was bad news Bears.
Yeah. The Twins outscored those 2 teams 76-36 over 10 days. I know they're awful teams. Everybody gets to play the awful teams. What you do with them is up to you. The Twins did their business. They need to carry this over against Boston and Seattle, who have really good starting pitching coming to town on Friday. And but the thing is, the Twins will at least be in a much better place to handle the good competition this time around. They just out of the gate, they did not look. They looked terrible. They were awful. And hurting Royce Lewis or losing Royce Lewis 3 innings into the season really hurt them beyond that. And they limped through those first 20 games, and they're just so much better positioned now and playing their best baseball. So that's a good spot to be when you're going to start seeing good competition again.
Man, I was looking at the 04 draft. You're right. Justin Verlander to the Tigers. He went 2nd, though, and I can't believe whoever the San Diego Padres GM was with the 1st overall pick in 04, he takes Matt freaking Bush. I mean, what a disaster that was.
Actually, do you know that that's his actual nickname there is Matt? I covered the Padres from 2007 to 2012, and Matt Bush was getting through his legal problems and then had more as his career went on with them. And they did it for the discount. Their owner at the last minute said Verlander's going to be too expensive, and whoever the other top guy, maybe Phil Umber was up there, they were going to be too expensive. So he said, I want you to look at this guy. Their scouts had not scouted Matt Bush at all, and they took him. And Justin Verlander went to the Tigers, and, you know, it's history for the rest of baseball.
That's unbelievable. Time for a couple more for you, and specific to the team. Winners of 10 straight. Carlos Santana's got 4 bombs in his last 7 games, so it's nice of him to show up. Duran's healthy, but Buxton in this knee thing. What do we know about who's coming back? Where are things sitting that are real good, and maybe some question marks with the team at this stage?
Yeah, I don't know much on Buxton. It didn't look great. That was a very non-competitive stolen base attempt yesterday. Byron Buxton's Mr. Hustle. For him to pull up and not even try to slide, something was not good there. The slow walk off the field only kind of made it more clear that something was a little bit awry. I know you look at the way he's been playing. They've used him sporadically lately. I think they've been managing him, but at the same time, he went into yesterday feeling good. So I don't know. Look, this is a guy that played on one leg in all of 2022 and would spend 4 hours in the training room at a time and just to get out there, barely got a chance to take batting practice, that kind of stuff, and was an all-star. So he does miracles with his leg before. I would imagine that he will be happy when the weather warms up. I don't know what we're looking at, though, on this because there was not much information after the game. He was going for MRI, I believe, today in Minnesota. We should have more idea tomorrow. Justin Topa is getting close. Like you pointed out, Duran just came back. Royce Lewis, I still think it's 5 weeks today since opening day. I still think he's minimum 3 more weeks at least. He told me 2 weeks ago that it was going to be a 6-week process just for it to heal properly. And I can promise you with the value that he provides and with the fact that they're on this 10-game winning streak and the ship has at least been righted to like where they got the reset, there's not going to be the rush to bring him back early. So I wouldn't be shocked if it was 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that. They're going to take their time. He's too valuable to rush back. And I mean, Carlos Correa, like that's another guy. They took their time and they were smart and he looks good. He's that 2-out single in the 8th inning that tied the game on Tuesday night was huge for him to come back, without the benefit of a rehab. He requested that. And to get that single just kind of gets him going. And yesterday he had a single and a couple walks. And, I think that there's enough good going on with, like you said, Santana. Ryan Jeffers looks like an all-star right now. Jose Miranda looks outstanding. And his arm is in good enough shape that they're actually feeling good about playing him at third base right now. At first, it was going to be like, hey, we'll play him at third base 1 time a week, and he can either DH or be first base the rest of the time because they wanted to protect his shoulder after surgery. And he's throwing well enough that they are feeling free to play him more often. And with the way he's hitting, he's going to find himself in that lineup more often. So I think there's enough parts to get by. Austin Martin and Willie Castro would be center field if Buxton requires time. That's not ideal, but it's not horrible either. Willie Castro woke up on this road trip, and so many guys got healthy, going to this sausage fest 10 days in a row that they, I think they're in a good spot.
Hey, thanks so much for all you do for our show and terrific coverage of the Minnesota Twins is already, and we're going to have to lean on you a bit more because we're going to have to trust reading your articles that the baseball games did indeed actually take place. So I'm looking forward to I need a little more description in those gamers because.
Hey, what about tweets? I'll give you more. The tweets, that's always, I'm going to just caution everyone, those are questionable. Don't believe everything I tweet. So,
I appreciate that. And there's 162 of these things. So pace yourself as it pertains to live tweeting May baseball games. All right.
I will. All right. Thanks, Nordo.
Hey, you're the best. Thank you. That's Dan Hayes of The Athletic at Dan Hayes MLB. And a couple more segments to go. I got some of your text messages on deck. A couple of talkers I want to dig into as we slowly but surely put a wrap on a Wednesday or Thursday, 9 to noon. Max with me, Nordo. It's the Fan.
And before we go to break, the Fan and BigDeck.com want to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand with our national cash contest. Enter the keyword money at KFAN.com now for your shot at winning. That's keyword money. Enter it now at KFAN.com. Unapologetically hilarious stand-up comedian, writer, and actress Wanda Sykes is bringing her Please and Thank You tour to Minnesota. Don't miss out when she takes the stage at the Orpheum Theater on Saturday, November 16th. Tickets go on sale tomorrow at 10 a.m. For more info, head over to KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Nordo in for PA. Tomorrow, it's a potpourri of a show tomorrow. Max, you're with me, I believe, again, indeed.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sweet. Chad Greenway is going to be in the mix during the first hour. And then CJ Ham, I believe it's whether it's the Thielen Foundation, there's a charity softball game that's taking place at CHS Field towards the end of May. And CJ Ham, Vikings fullback, is going to join me. We'll talk about the charity side of things. Then we'll talk a bit of Vikings football with him. A bit of horse handicapping for the Kentucky Derby. Basically, it's going to be 8 or 9 minutes of me asking really dumb novice-related questions. And PA's not here. I got to ask somebody. So Dick Girardi's going to join me and Lynn Lavelle in studio. So heavy on the howl. This baseball team will continue this conversation. And I love Dan and the insight that Dan gave to the situation. But, in the end, we are resourceful people, correct? And you mentioned Max TV, which does not sound legal at all.
No, I don't think it is.
But VPN, okay, you can just get a VPN and you can do out of market games that way. Twins fans are going to find a way,
right? People always do.
So I can't remember where I heard this, but The Athletic, for instance, that from an MLB market standpoint, the Twins are like the 5th or the 6th most dedicated fan base to the Athletic.
Oh,
so you got the Yankees, you got the Dodgers, right? So multiple writers, big markets, the whole thing. Boston certainly in the mix. I'd imagine the Cubs are there.
Probably, yeah. And
then it's us from the cornfields. So high subscriptions, high coverage and interaction, engagement, all of those things. Does that lend to the idea that you could do similar to what the Diamondbacks did? You mentioned a little bit different angle, but the Phoenix Suns, like we're gonna do it our own way.
Right.
Charge Twins fans. Would Twins fans be open to, hey, I'm gonna, pay us $100 and you get all the games. And it's available, in smart TVs or on your phones. I just wonder if Twins fans would be open to that.
I would think so, especially because we're so focused on our own squad that if we just had a whole network dedicated to Twins and Twins only, I would think that a lot of people would be down for that, especially just how many people. You don't realize how many people actually care about this squad until they're not available, because I've seen so many people upset about this Bally Sports bid. So I would imagine it's at least worth looking into, Nordo.
Well, and it's not just that too. I mean, well, it's tough now because you're getting, what's the NBA TV deal look like, and how is that? What kind of freedoms? Obviously, the Wolves are on Bally's as well. But the difference is Bally's, and they've gone national now with the playoffs. But Bally's with the Wolves and the Wild, you can still watch those games via the streaming. So something funky with the Twins contract in which you can't. But could you partner with the Wild and the Wolves and create a package deal that was purely local? Make nice with the other owners.
Yeah.
And how much would you pay for that? Now you're getting all three. So it's super intricate, frustrating. Again, baseball has I go back to marketing their stars and some of the problems that they have. Twins winners of 10 in a row. Ultimately, Fubo, DirecTV, Spectrum, there are a few options out there for you. Eventually, they're going to get it resolved. In the meantime, the VPN and Max TV. Those are the options. I had, and I was looking at this 04 Major League Baseball draft as well. Justin Verlander going second to the Tigers after that historically bad 03 season. Maybe this current White Sox team is just as bad. And I see Matt Bush going first. What a disaster that was for the Padres. But it reminded me to our conversation from earlier, Max. You were 10. I was 19 the last time the Minnesota Timberwolves got out of the first round, and how the world has changed. Earlier in the week, talking about Nipplegate. Yeah, correct.
Defining moment for a young Max.
Yeah, MySpace. I was 19. It was still, it was something to me as well. But I was looking this up, and the Motorola Razr was a popular phone back then, and it cost $500.
Which when I was looking up the same thing, and when I saw that the Razr came out in 2004, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But the price absolutely blew my mind. I was like, no wonder my parents weren't going to let me get a Razr. $500?
No, it's crazy. And so that led me to thinking. And again, I was on my second or third cell phone at the time. You were 10. Thinking about Janet Jackson and looking for your first cell phone. But I found this from January or February of 2004 from IGN. Sanyo, just listen to this. This is 2004, the last time the Wolves were fresh. Sanyo is making huge inroads in the handset market. But their new SCP 5500, this was my favorite cell phone back in the day. Had it for years, worked forever. Their new SCP 5500 should be nothing short of the key to the executive washroom. The 5500 is Sanyo's first video camera phone.
Oh.
And right now, it doesn't get much cooler than this. The 310K pixel camera can record up to 15 seconds of video. And it's interesting, they note, at a decent resolution. That's 96 by 128, by the way. And easily send it on to another phone or home PC. Of course, the first thing we thought of were the privacy violations we could rack up with such a device, and something like the 5500 will likely to begin to force handset makers into developing some sort of alert system that lets people know when their picture is being taken.
Yeah,
an alert? They were thinking about this 20 years ago, and then at some point in boardrooms, they're like, an alert? Nah, selfies are good.
Yeah, we're all good.
We're just going to unleash this, and now everyone's picture is being taken.
Yeah, screw your privacy.
Well, and it goes back to in viral videos that jump up now. It's an everyday thing, every minute thing, viral pictures and things, people in the worst moments. And I'm just thinking like my 21st birthday. If I turn 21 today, all sorts of people got all sorts of footage. My inclination in those, I did not want people documenting this. I did not want to update even my MySpace with what I was doing on my 21st birthday. More than just a video camera phone, by the way, this SCP-5500 from Sanyo also features Sprint's new ReadyLink system, walkie-talkie-esque. And it runs Java-based games.
Oh.
It also features a WAP 2.0 browser for web surfing, but on a limited scale. That was my favorite phone ever. Coming out, fresh technology in 2004. It sounds like I was writing on stone tablets.
Yeah, it really does.
It's unbelievable.
They're touting the fact that it can record 15-second videos.
Java-based
games.
I mean, I'm 19 years old playing tic-tac-toe while I'm working at Best Buy trying to pass the time until I sell another TV.
And you're thinking, this is the future.
Yeah, I'm on the front end of it. You wouldn't believe the flat screen tube TVs that we were pumping out of Best Buy store 330 in Mankato. What's up? Unbelievable. 20 years ago, indeed.
20 freaking years ago. I love that whole ad. It just, I mean, obviously we get how long 20 years ago was in our brain, but that seems like a lifetime ago, you reading that out loud.
The technological revolution and what has taken place over the last 20 years, indeed. I mean, as much as things have changed, and it feels like it's what feels like a long time now in 20 years, 10 years from now, maybe will feel like that same gap.
Right.
I'm having trouble trying to keep up with things.
Well, even, I mean, if you think about it, 10 years ago, there were still at least some blockbusters around, some home movie stores kind of around 10, 11, 12 years
2004?
ago. No, I mean, talking about 2014. Like,
yeah.
I mean, think about how much.
Sure.
Yeah, think about how much has changed just since then. You know, like let alone 20 years. It's incredible to think about.
Playing Snake on your Nokia.
Yeah.
I saw it, and I actually when I was looking up stuff like this, again, these are the things when your basketball team has spent 20 years not doing cool stuff, and it finally does. You take a peek on the internet about this stuff. In 2004, the original Star Wars trilogy was released on DVD.
Yeah, and it did like crazy numbers, too.
$100 million in its first day sales.
My God.
Are you a Star Wars guy?
Yeah, I love Star Wars.
See, I love the movies, but don't ask me any of the storylines.
Yeah,
I just find them to be interesting.
Same.
I'm a big science fiction, again, not a savant when it comes to stuff, but like the first rated R movie that my dad ever showed me, I was about 7 years old, probably too young. But Alien and then Aliens.
Oh, yeah.
With Sigourney Weaver.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's two of my favorite movies to this day.
They're elite.
Oh, they're absolutely badass.
Definitely too young to be watching it, but it doesn't matter. You turned out fine.
I knew it wasn't real.
Right.
My dad always told me, like, if things get weird, just put the blanket over your eyes. I'm like, I'm a tough guy, Dad. Yeah, but then that acid's eating through somebody. That's tough when the lights go out and I'm tucked in bed, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's all good in the moment, but when you're alone and you hear a creak, then it starts getting real.
Now, you were only 10 at the time. This is one last thing, and then we'll pause and put a wrap on the show. I don't know. So, again, I was 19. You were 10. But tell me if you remember this. So, probably at 10 years old, not immensely locked into the political landscape, right? Like,
no.
The war in Iraq's taking place. We know that. GW is running for re-election. Ultimately, it was against John Kerry. But 20 years ago, we got this from Democratic upstart Howard Dean. Let's listen.
If you had told us 1 year ago that we were going to come in third in Iowa, we would have given anything for that. And you know something? Not only are we going to New Hampshire, Tom Harkin, we're going to South Carolina and Oklahoma and Arizona and North Dakota and New Mexico. We're going to California and Texas and New York. And we're going to South Dakota and Oregon and Washington and Michigan. And then we're going to Washington, D.C. to take back the White House. Yeah!
It's all time. That was 20 years ago already.
And think about how much the political landscape has changed, that just going can completely derail all hopes of becoming the president.
And he is, as many things have changed, from my Sanyo SCP 5500 to flip phone LCD screens and iPhone 17s. One thing that has not changed is that voice is still the butt of a million freaking jokes. And hopefully for the Minnesota Timberwolves, maybe things don't change for them entering the second round of the NBA playoffs. First tip-off is on Saturday. We're still awaiting the game time. If the Knicks close out and the Pacers close out tonight, it's an early game, I believe. If not, then it's an 8:30 game. Alan Horton loving the idea of it being late so they can get a shoot around. But that's where things stand, and looking forward to the Timberwolves doing something they haven't done in 2 decades. Not back since I could record a 15-second video and potentially look at the internet on my phone. That's how long that it's been. We're going to pause now, come back. I'm going to go find my old Live Strong bracelet, and we'll put a wrap on things 9 to noon. It's The Fan.
You're listening to The Fan.
See Creed reunite at Treasure Island. Rock out to songs like Higher, With Arms Wide Open, and My Sacrifice when they take the stage with 3 Doors Down and Finger 11 on Saturday, August 17th. Additional general admission tickets are available now at TICasino.com.
Man, speaking of 2004.
Right.
Creed, 3 Doors Down. Finger 11 might be a little bit newer. I don't know. I was babysat by MTV in mid-2000s, almost completely stopped listening to new music at a high level. So I don't remember exactly when those things took place. Remember when, Kirk's gone now. All the bits are gone. I wonder if, because the Vikings with Kirk and Creed, that was a thing in the locker room. And I'm sure you've seen it, Max. Ever since he was drafted by Atlanta, they're following the Minnesota playbook.
Yeah, they've been leaning on the Kirk O'Chains thing heavy. They just completely stole the bit.
Yeah, his chains adorn. I think they made him chains for when he showed up. Again, if you needed any other further proof
right.
that they had been planning this and there was tampering involved, it's one thing to get the deal hammered out. But Jacob the jeweler didn't make two custom chains for Kirk,
right? Just in case,
in 36 hours.
Right?
Where did you get those chains? Those chains were manufactured, designed, and adorned with all of the diamonds in February. Just look to the chains if you want proof of tampering.
That's true, right? The NFL just has to follow the jewelry.
But it's the chains thing. It's 3 fingers of warm skim milk. It's he's throwing out the first pitch at Braves games and all of that. So I still kind of want to go see Creed and 3 Doors Down and Finger 11. But you said that's at Treasure Island. Is that where that's at?
That is indeed at Treasure Island, August 17th.
No, that's badass. All right. Hey, thank you for hanging out, and we'll see you again tomorrow. That's Max Fuller. Thanks to whether it's Ben Lieber, it was Dan Hayes, and Alan Horton, Wolfsvox, right out of the gates. Thank you for joining 9 to Noon. Thank you for listening to 9 to Noon. I'll be back with you for a feast mañana.